Alright, let's be honest here. Butterleaf lettuce. No flavor, but it's flexible, meaning that it's going to act as the perfect vessel for our peanut protein chicken packed wraps with 2 extra sides. It's going to be a crazy meal and low carb. Yes, sir? Alright, so your first step is get some peanut butter. I went with Jif, just go to whatever's cheapest in your store. Then get some light brown sugar, lime juice, ground ginger, chili paste with garlic, and soy sauce. I went with the ground ginger because that's just easier. You can go with the fresh stuff for sure, but just be careful of how much ground ginger you put in there. It's very potent, so just follow the measurements on the back. So now you're going to be putting less than half a cup of your peanut butter in a container. I recommend a container because if you're doing this ahead, you can easily fit a lid on top. After that, just throw some soy sauce, lime juice, and brown sugar in there. And again, be careful with how much ginger you put in there. And then you're going to be putting the chili garlic paste. If you've never had this stuff, I would recommend buying it. You can certainly DIY it. However, you're going to be putting it in a lot more recipes. It's good in like Mexican food. It's really tasty stuff. After that, just pull out your mini pig whisk. Notice how large my hands are in compared to the size of everything else, and whisk that boy up. You're also going to want to throw in some water near the end just to thin it out. If you didn't do this, the sauce would be way too thick, so just eyeball it. You can change it up, especially when you end up serving it. So for the sesame sweet potatoes, you're just going to want to cut those up into bite-sized pieces. Start off with the rounds, then end up cutting them down smaller and smaller. You don't want any thick pieces because we aren't boiling this, it's just going to go straight into a 350 oven, and then you are going to be coating them with the rest of the ingredients. On a parchment-lined baking sheet, you're going to want to eyeball the rest of these. There's a recipe below, however I just put a little sesame oil, some olive oil, soy sauce, sesame seeds, and fresh ground pepper. What's interesting about this is that there's more sesame oil than olive oil. Usually it's the other way around, but you're going to be ending up getting a little bit more sesame flavor out of it when you put more sesame oil in there. Toss it around with your hands and then send it in the oven. It stays pretty warm as long as you keep it in there, so it should be good until dinner time. Cutting leeks is an interesting task. Not a lot of people have done it before, but you're going to want to get rid of the leafy greens. You can save those for vegetable stock, but I'm not about that, so I just throw it away. You're going to want to take off the outer layer as well, and if you look closer, you can see how much sand is actually in there. An important part about leeks is actually cleaning them. So after we split it in half, we're going to be doing half moon shapes here. You can just start slicing them. You don't want to go too thin because you're going to be cooking these with the green beans and you don't want them to burn. So just be careful that you have them at the right thickness. After you've sliced everything, you can bring out a container full of ice water and throw your leeks in there. The sand's going to go to the bottom while the leeks float to the top. Then you can get your mesh strainer, take out the leeks, and put them back in the container, and you can save that for dinner once we fry those up. So now it's time to cut up the jalapeños. Don't be like me, wear gloves. It's a bad idea if you don't. And you're going to want to cut those, removing the seeds, putting them aside, and then just chop them up into minced pieces. Now it's important to actually save the seeds. I didn't do this and it didn't end up being that spicy in the green beans. So what I would recommend doing is when you fry up the oil, instead of putting your leeks in first, keep your jalapeno seeds, toast them up in there to infuse the oil, and then throw in your leeks. You could either take the seeds out or leave them in there, but you're going to want to caramelize your leeks next. Once those boys are looking nice and toasty, and not burnt, you're going to want to throw in your green beans. We aren't boiling these, we're just going to be sauteing them in here, so just put the lid on, keep it on there on medium-high heat for about 5 minutes, then turn the heat off and keep the lid on. The steam in there is going to steam the green beans further, softening them up. Just be sure to keep track of your green beans while they're in there. You don't want them getting too soft, so just take off the lid once they've reached an appropriate fork tenderness. And now here comes the sacrilegious part. I'm using ground turkey instead of ground chicken. Now that doesn't really matter though, because they have the same nutritional value essentially, and at the end of the day they taste the same, especially with all the flavorings that we're going to put in here and the peanut sauce. So just be sure to get whatever is cheapest when you're at the market. I have 2 pounds of ground turkey in here, and I didn't anticipate the amount of water that would come out of this, so you're probably going to want to skim that off once you see a huge pool of water. Once you see a little bit of browning, you're going to want to put the shallots and the carrots in. Those are going to soften up and caramelize. Now you want to throw in your ginger, hoisin sauce, and chili garlic paste. You can just eyeball these on your first try, you can check the recipe, but it's pretty easy just to go by what it tastes like. And there you have it. There it is all on the plate. You got your green beans that are going to be nice and spicy if you toast those seeds, some sesame sweet potatoes, and of course the poultry protein packed wraps. Those are amazing. You get a lot out of this, especially when you double the recipe that I linked below. And if you have any extras, you can throw a lot of this stuff on salad and it is going to be prime. Pretty cost effective, quick and easy meal. I hope you enjoy.